It has been a heavy, volatile candle. XRP came down to 0.38 and right now is working on a doji. But can that hold as a support or are we going further to the downside? Yes, Bitcoin is showing you somewhat similar price action. On a daily chart, it's holding on to this level of the bottom range of the support. Initial, that was around 58, after which it is 56,000. Right now, you're trying to hold on above that. If you do see the price holding there for the weekly close, there is some hope without going back down further to the next level of the support. And this would actually depend on how the entire market is perceiving all of this. Dominant addresses with Bitcoin is getting activated after 10 long years. What does that mean? 10,000 Ether just moved into an exchange, Binance. What does that mean? In between all of this, you have something positive coming out, highlighting the fact that regulations from the regulatory bodies should not be the rule. Court should consider the actual rule of the land, not what the regulators are saying. And that's a big blow to SEC and other institutions. Then on the positive side, you have what you're watching in front of you. A 65 million, a 200 million, another 50 million, 55 million. So money is coming into the market. It is true, but the trouble is you also have panic sellers which are still heavy, moving in thousands and tens of thousands of assets. And that's where you see governments are also doing that. They don't trust their fiat. They are moving more and more into gold. And you see dollars slowing down, gold and silver is going up. So what does all of this mean for the crypto market from here? Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys get to learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. Right now, the market is so choppy, so bad, so dropped. Depressive movements in the market. Just 1 week, you can watch very little random assets are in green. Other than that, everything else bleeding. But now, question is, how deep should this actually go? Because we all understand for a fact that if you do give up this range here, that's negative. There is no doubt in that. There will only be some concerns about that. Now, what would be the primary concern? The next level of support, which should be here. And that, if you put in different perspective, it's like, okay, the first key range comes after another 10,000-15,000 drop. The major movement is another 25% down. Now, we'll also have to ask ourselves, does that make sense? That's a 41% drop on a 3-day chart of Bitcoin. Say you put that on a weekly. That 41% drop, did that happen before at any time? This should be one of the most important questions we should be asking ourselves. The only time before this when you broke the moving average to the downside is here. And the total move to the downside was like 55%. Then yes, you went back up to create a new high, which was just a fake out, and you came back down into the bear market. All of that happened based on the monthly chart. So you pull up the monthly chart on Bitcoin, and this is what you see. We had the wave 1, we had the wave 2, we had the wave 3. But in all of these cycles, you got the divergence. So when will that divergence come? because this is your trend line on which you're working. That's a monthly chart, and the RSI on a monthly for Bitcoin shows you this. If you do look at the previous two trend, you will see, yeah, we've been dropping like crazy. But each of these times, the price actually held one key range. If that's true, then we have some hope. But the trouble is that comes after very choppy, decent run to the downside for bears, not for the bulls. So if you do understand that this is most likely going to be a 1, 2, 3 event, and then the question becomes like, okay, where the hell do we look for a bottom? Now, as of this candle close, the daily, what you're watching is the price is pushing lower, you're trending lower, you now have lower highs and lower low. That's not fair enough for the bulls. So the level of divergence which we saw earlier is kind of getting wiped off. Now the only area you can look for is this becoming a Wyckoff spring. And for that, within next 3 to 5 days or max 10 days, you need to see the price coming back above 61,000. If it doesn't, now you're looking for the lower levels of support. The trend line which the bulls were actually looking at, one of them was this. But we're now below it. Unless we move back above, it doesn't act as a support. It will act as a resistance. Which means the next leg to the downside is going to be coming back into the trend line, into the channel. Because the support in the RSI for Bitcoin weekly has been broken. It's been a bullish ride to the upside. However, the divergence didn't hold. Now, take a look at Ether for that matter. If you do look at the trend line for Ether, the bottom should be what? 2100. However, if you are looking at Ether, say on a weekly chart, you're now saying for Ether, over the times, you have seen multiple break to the downside of the moving average. Not once. You have seen that multiple times. And each time, you went back up to make a new high. But the trouble is, again, what's the downside? Because that matters a lot at this point. It's like a 60+% move. So now we have seen a 30% drop. There was a 36% before. So if you boil all of that down, we would like to see the price come back down to this range. But for Ether, unlike Bitcoin, it's still holding on to this support, which in itself is a different story, right? Because Bitcoin usually shakes the market, and when Bitcoin drops, the market gets nuked. Yes, Ether dropped. But right now, you're watching this level of support is still holding for Ether. The divergence in Bitcoin got invalidated. However, the same divergence in Ether is still holding on. So I'm like, okay, does that look clear on the Bitcoin dominance chart? Can we actually see that the money flow is moving in to Bitcoin or to the altcoins? Right now, it says it's still very choppy. The actual range it created is still active. The downside range. Now you can zoom in to see where you're trending. Are you putting in higher highs, lower highs? What's the trend? It's kind of clear at this point that we're doing this. The highs are coming lower. Now we would like to see a trend here being formed like this. Now, it's just a speculation at my end saying there is a decent possibility that we may do this. And that means something positive. Because right now you're watching Bitcoin is down 0.47%. Ether is down 0.17, whereas XRP is up 0.47. So you're watching, money is starting to fluctuate into the altcoin market. And that's where you go and search alts which give you some certainty, some sort of something positive to say, okay, I'm going to try writing this. And that's exactly what's happening in the Scientific Investor family. We're going through a lot of different assets to find which of these are looking good. Now, being honest, literally had to go through like 50, 60, 55 assets to find one positive asset, which means it's going to be trouble at this moment, but you can still find one or two. But if you're like, no, I just saw massive volatility until we get a reversal signal, I'm staying out, that's good. But just look for assets which show you the direction. And that direction can lead the market. So if the price bounces off from here, now you know which of these assets are best to ride. This is the basic sense of the market. So if XRP is showing you it's coming back up, that's positive. However, right now, the price doesn't show you that it's going up. What it does show is that this is a trend line which you just broke to the upside. So there is some level of positivity building up. But it can just be a retest to the upside and a rejection. So this support of 0.38 is going to be very critical for XRP holders. Now, you put the same chart on a macro to actually see whether you're still doing something which we have seen historically. Then we'll actually put the argument like, okay, the drops, the chops, we've seen those. But this is a bit big. So by the time the weekly candle closes, it needs to be around 0.45. If it's below 0.43, then negative price action is increasing substantially. Instead of this pattern breaking to the upside on a weekly chart for XRP, now we are watching that breaking to the downside. That's not a favorable condition. Who is dumping the supply into the market? Majority are not. The retail is not. Then who? That's the question. So while you do understand that the market is doing a lot of these choppy moves and money is pouring into the market, the fight between the buyers and sellers, you're watching it. Some wants to dump it, some wants to buy it. So money is kind of moving hands. We want to see whether it's moving from the weak hands to the strong hands or the opposite. And that decides where the market actually goes. So guys, if you received value, smash that like button. And if you want to follow the SI family to get all of these updates, use the link in the description below. I'll meet you guys on the next video. Bye for now.